when I feel the munchies, I really just reach for those things. And I've learned that when I don't and I go the other way and I just start like kind of endlessly eating, it's like very taxing on my body. So then I get like,
Totally.
I get that kind of couch lock. I'm tired, like, because now my body needs to process all these essentially carbs and sugars. So it needs to use lots of energy to process them. And I don't like that feeling. And then I start like correlating a negative feeling to the cannabis. And I'm like, no, this isn't it. Damn it. Why'd I just do this again to
really
myself? Good morning. Hi.
Hi, Devin.
I'm excited to have this conversation.
Me
This was
too.
kind of like impromptu. You're like, we're doing it. I'm going to be in on the munchie conversation.
It was a unified idea. I'm happy about it.
So today we're going to talk about munchies.
Yeah.
Yeah, the kind of the science behind it and what happens when we're experiencing that and how we can use it to our benefit or try to avoid it.
Yeah.
So today I've got Rich Cardona with me. Rich is a retired Marine from Marine Corps and ex-Amazon, retired from Amazon too.
Yes,
Emancipated,
emancipated.
there you go. And you have a great story how you left Amazon, became an entrepreneur, and now you have Rich Cardona Media and do all things media and focusing on podcasting right now.
Oh, yeah.
Rich is actually the one who has helped me put this podcast together, which is awesome.
Give her feedback. Let her know. Let her know what you think. You
Yeah,
gotta
let us know. And I'm excited to have you be part of this conversation today.
Yeah, this is going to be legit because I've actually called you about this.
Yeah.
Like, this is not, we need content. This is, Devin, why does this happen? So here we are, and I think it's perfect.
Yeah. So munchies, a word that we, it's kind of synonymous with cannabis now. So I think what it is, it's a commonly used word to describe that feeling. If you've ever consumed cannabis, particularly the THC form of cannabis, we call it munchies when you start to get hungry and then you just keep eating and eating and eating and eating, and it feels like it never stops. And I think sometimes when people are like, oh, I feel like hungover from cannabis, it's really like food hangover sometimes because you just eat. And it doesn't happen to everyone, so it's this kind of phenomenon
which is
that
nuts.
happens.
I think when you and Brittany were talking about it yesterday, I'm like, what? And then how you guys were like, it's not like that for everyone.
Right.
And I'm like, that's bullshit.
That's not fair.
And I'm not even saying munchies are bad, but it's an issue, and that's why we're going to talk about it.
Yeah, there's some pros and cons to it, right?
For sure.
So I think, why don't you explain your experience with munchies in your consumption?
Yeah, so I was very into flowers in high school, and I'll just say it because like it's important to be honest, but like even in the Marine Corps, like when we needed releases, we risked it a lot and sometimes dabbled in a couple things just because we just, I don't know, alcohol is dangerous sometimes.
Yeah.
And maybe this was like a less alternative, but it's obviously illegal there, but we did it anyway. And one thing I noticed in high school and then as an adult and then after the Marine Corps, which I really didn't like smoke, but I've had edibles after, brownies or Rice Krispie treats or whatever, I would just get like insanely hungry.
Okay.
To the point where I would eat before and be like, there's no way I'll be hungry after this.
Right.
And I'm like I told you before we started, like a bottomless pit. And this is a huge problem generally because you can feel how out of control you are while it's happening.
Right.
You start coming up with crazy concoctions like, this sounds like a good meal.
Right.
You might be in be like, hey, let's go to Taco Bell. And then on the way home from Taco Bell, we could stop at Burger King too, because I'd love a Whopper Jr., and it's just like.
So you get it bad.
Bad.
Okay.
And the reason this is a problem is number one, like it actually, we talked about how THC doesn't necessarily create anxiety. Right. But that's a byproduct that creates anxiety, which is like, why am I munching so much and not understanding why? And then the second part is, it's important for me to look like a veteran.
Right, right.
You don't want to be that person who's like, oh, like you served? So it's like, I do have like a fitness routine and always trying to be on a nutrition regimen of some sort. I'm always trying. And I was telling Britt yesterday, I was like, I'll never stop trying until I get it really dialed in.
Right.
But if I use THC products, to calm myself. And I think you and I talked about this. Like, I don't want to be on anything the VA prescribes.
Right.
You know, I have PTSD, general anxiety from a lot of things. And it's like, look, this is what I found to be the thing that just puts me at ease.
Right.
But what's the con to that is that I get freaking hungry.
Right.
Like, it's unstoppable.
Yeah, so you don't have the like side effects from pharmaceuticals, but you have this like bottomless pit munchie side effect that can really get in the way of your like fitness and health goals if you're not careful.
But it's just also embarrassing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I used to tell my parents when I was in high school and I'd come home high, like very high. They'd always be like, "What is wrong with you?"
Right.
Especially because of my eyes.
Dead giveaway.
Dead giveaway.
Yeah.
But I'm really allergic to cats, and a bunch of my friends had cats, so I would just say that. But they're like, "That doesn't make sense because like you're eating a ton of food right now. Like, why are you making scrambled eggs at 11 at night?"
I love it.
Don't know.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's just kind of embarrassing, and maybe not for you guys, but like for me, it's just kind of weird when you're just like you said, ravenous, and you're just like in the fridge and like you've been eating for like an hour straight. It's like if you could lay out everything that you ate over the course of a munchie mania. If you could lay that out at the beginning of the day and be like, "You're gonna eat all this," you'd
like,
shit yourself.
No, you're like, no, I'm not.
Yeah, you'd be like, "No, like that's insane." So yeah,
it's so outside of the munchies, it's like self-control becomes really hard,
especially if you're a disciplined person.
Yeah,
you work super hard, you run a company, like it makes you feel like, wait a second, I don't have it all together.
Yeah, and no one likes that mirror put right in front of them. So something is happening in our bodies, and when we experience munchies, so we'll speak to a little bit of that. But like we've discussed in other episodes, we all have an endocannabinoid system. And when we consume cannabis, particularly THC dominant products, whether you're smoking it, vaping it, eating it, not so much transdermally, like it really is when you're consuming it in those methods that the munchies kicks in. There's a few things that are happening, and then I think this is where that like nuance comes, where some people feel it more than others, and it all relates back to kind of where they're at with their endocannabinoid system. Some of those things that happen are your hypothalamus stimulation. So your hypothalamus controls a lot, but things like your appetite and your metabolism, it also controls kind of like your mood and perception of it. And so this like extreme hypothalamus stimulation is kind of what's like triggering this munchie extreme. Some of the other things that happened is you get an increased enhanced sense of smell and taste. So that's why things like taste really good when you have the munchies, where you're like, oh my God, why is this so good right now? I need more. Because you know, throughout the day, your endocannabinoid system is engaged or not engaged. So then we engage it more, and then everything kind of like wakes up a little bit. It also releases dopamine. When THC binds to our CB1 and CB2 receptors, we do get a little dopamine hit, most people. And so that's where you get that reward cycle with the munchies. So you're like, yeah, I'm eating. I'm going to keep eating. And this is where like maybe that bottomless pit comes in.
You're saying the same dopamine that you might get from having a bunch of people like your post is the same effect and dopamine hit I could get from destroying a slice of pizza.
Yeah, and that's maybe why you're like, now I'm going to go to Burger King, because you're like looking for the next dopamine hit.
So ridiculous.
And that's where that like people's self-control and discipline comes in.
Okay.
We all like dopamine hits. It's
I'm
just
try
the
and
reality.
remember this.
Yeah, it's good. Hopefully this information can arm anyone that's like struggling with munchies to like work on some of the self-control around it.
Well, that's a perfect like place for me to just mention, like, so I'm working with a guy who I hired recently, and like this may sound insane to some people, but like he just has me take pictures of my meals now. So I took one last night, and at the barbecue place.
Edley's Barbecue.
Yeah, so I got something. It was like half chicken, but I didn't realize the skin was still on. Not a huge deal, but there was sauce and then like some stuff on top of that.
Yeah.
He goes, that has sugar.
Yep.
And he goes, and that has fat. He goes, that's the deadliest combination. He goes, nothing God has ever made has sugar and fat together. He goes, that's the worst of the worst.
Okay.
He goes, I actually prefer you eat those baked beans and, you know, whatever. And I was like, okay. And the reason I mentioned that is because I learned something.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, now I'll kind of be on the lookout for like when it's fat and sugary and greasy because that's going to taste the best. And we know this kind of in the back of our head. But now that I understand it, I might hesitate a little bit more to veer off.
Right.
And same thing here. So it's like the educational part, I think, is important. So
Yeah,
like
it's like-
dopamine part at all, I've literally never heard that
Yeah.
before, ever.
Yeah. And it's like this, that know better, do better. Take the conversation a little higher so that the next time
Yeah.
you approach a situation, you're like, wait, I know what's happening right now.
Yes.
I can talk myself out of that.
That's right. And if you want to take this podcast a little higher, rate and review it. Thank you.
Yes.
Bye.
A few other things happen. Your blood sugar fluctuations when you're experiencing the munchies because THC is engaging with your receptors, your endocannabinoid system. THC can affect your blood sugar.
I don't understand anything about blood sugar.
Blood sugar?
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, so that's
you
kind
do-
of like what you're experiencing or what you're learning about with your health coach right now. And this should totally be a whole other episode
Yeah,
one
we
day.
can.
It's not similar to dopamine, but everything you eat affects your blood sugar. And so like a carb, it doesn't start as sugar, but as you eat it and process it, it turns into sugar. So that's going to spike your blood glucose or your blood sugar up or down, which is sometimes where you feel like crashes after you eat
When
a
it
bunch of
spikes and
food
then-
when it spikes up, because then
Yep.
it comes back down. So
Always
you're
with
always
carbs.
like seeking to, and everyone's diet and body needs are different. So you see people now a lot wearing those like constant
Totally.
blood,
Yeah.
because they're trying to figure out what they eat, what helps not spike their blood sugar.
Yes.
So it keeps them like at a good baseline, because that spike is really like detrimental when you have certain health goals, because then there's the crash and then you got to pull it back up, and then you
Yeah.
kind of you don't want to get in a situation where you're like chasing your blood glucose.
Yeah, this interesting. This might be relevant or not, but I've seen some things recently on some, I think even Huberman, where they're like, here's your plate of food. Let's just call it broccoli, chicken, mashed potatoes with butter on it or whatever. They're like, you're going to eat this in a specific order, because if the first thing you eat spikes your blood sugar, that's not what you want. Like, you want
Right.
to eat the broccoli first and then the chicken, and then the last thing that goes in is the carb.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's relevant or not, but
similar.
like, I know there's more stuff coming out on that than I've seen in the past for sure.
Yeah, and I think once you understand what does that and not does that, you can make those smart decisions when you're at a restaurant. But essentially, when you spike your blood sugar and it comes back down, that's when you get another boost of hunger, because your body needs something to pull it back up. So you just get in this
Yeah.
cycle. It's
Yeah.
frustrating.
I never want protein, by the way.
You
Like,
never want protein?
No, I mean,
Oh.
I always want protein
Right.
normally.
Yeah.
But then, like, with flour power, I'm
Yeah.
just like, dude.
You want
I want the
Oreos.
cheesiest,
Yeah, cheese.
doughiest. Like,
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's so funny.
Yeah. So negative side effects are that, right? Positive side effects is like intentionally inducing the munchies to trigger hunger for someone that might need to like have that spark to
Totally.
eat more, to increase their uptake their protein. I see a lot of mothers, myself, benefited from like microdosing early in like first trimester, when the nausea was so bad that I became like afraid to eat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very true.
So I would like want to kind of trigger that munchie feeling so that I could get food in, because when you're growing a baby, it's super important that you eat and nourish yourself. I think we've all heard about like cancer patients do
Yes.
really well with inciting that munchie feeling so
Totally.
that they can eat. Because we all know we need to eat, but if you don't feel like eating, it's really hard to force yourself to eat.
Yeah.
So cannabis, while munchies can be a negative thing, inducing that munchie feeling can be a really positive thing for some
Yeah.
people within the right like boundaries,
Yeah.
with self-discipline when they need it.
Agree.
But yeah, that's the kind of the high level science about what's happening with munchies.
Yeah.
I know for me, when I certainly get the munchies, but trying to just like not have those unhealthy foods in the house
Yeah.
definitely helps.
Go back to the episode with Britt, and
Yeah.
she kind of will help you prepare just as a general human being and
Yeah.
one who's floured up.
And then I have my staples when I have munchies, and it's dried mangoes. Because when I get the munchies, I crave really sour and tart. Like, not sugary, or
That's
I want like juice, like lemon juice, which is so odd. I don't know the science behind what drives that. But like dried mangoes kind of have that like tart, and they're chewy. They give me something to chew on for a while.
Yeah.
Or like turkey jerky or beef jerky, so that I'm at least getting like protein.
This
and
is bush league stuff, Devin. Like, I'm not even impressed. Like, I'm not even remotely impressed. I thought you were gonna be like,
I go for Oreos.
Like no, or a big meatball that's like inside it when you cut it open. I'm just talking about my fantasy right now.
Yeah, your munchie fantasy.
A meatball, and when you cut it, like all this mozzarella cheese like spills out. Like anyway.
I mean, I would love that, but I have learned over the years that this is.
Well, what have you learned? Like, how have you been able to kind of control it? And I just want to say one more thing, like before you answer that, is I don't feel satiated. It's like literally like I feel like my taste buds are like screaming like more. And it's just like you and I talked about drinking a lot of water in the beginning of the day because we don't want to be peeing all day, right? Or at night. But like there's just a point where you're like, if I have another sip, I'm going to explode.
Right.
I don't know how scientifically I'm able to, have some of those times where I'm just like, how's my stomach even capable of doing this right now? But anyway, the taste buds, I don't feel satiated, and my taste buds I feel like are like hopping up and down like more. So that's just me, but what have you learned that you've implemented that's like, all right.
That's really interesting. I'm going to do some more research after this to try to talk more to like the science of that part in particular. Obviously, I'm not perfect, and I've totally done the Taco Bell Burger King route. Good. So let's be honest there.
Validated.
But that's not sustainable, right? So when I feel the munchies, I really just reach for those things. And I've learned that when I don't, and I go the other way and I just start like kind of endlessly eating, it's like very taxing on my body. So then I get like, I get that kind of couch lock. I'm tired, like, because now my body needs to process all these essentially carbs and sugars. So it needs to use lots of energy to process them. And I don't like that feeling. And then I start like correlating a negative feeling to the cannabis. And I'm like, no, this isn't it. Damn it. Why'd I just do this again to myself? Because cannabis, you can overconsume. You can have negative experiences with it. But I know if I do it right in a smart setting and smart dosing, it has really positive attributes. But I have to curate that scenario. And so one of those is like just really watching out for the munchies. Low dose also helps. And so sometimes if I just overdo the dose a little too much, that's when I'm like, oh shit, here it comes. I gotta eat.
I agree with that.
And then just trying to have those staples that I reach for. So like dried mango or any dried fruit. Frozen mango is also something that I feel like I can just eat a lot of and feel full and satisfied, but not like wreck my macro intake for the day or something like that. And then reaching for protein as much as I can, like not a fatty protein, like a lean protein.
It's funny. I've tried to do protein shakes, and I used to put peanut butter in all of them. Now I don't, but I'll do that, and it seems to work a little bit,
right?
But it's not fun.
It's
not sexy.
I just have tried, and I've tried all the brands. I've tried the vegan ones. I've tried I don't like protein shakes. I just can't do it. I just want like grilled meat, and I'm good.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like more a quick, guaranteed way to have a huge amount of protein.
Yeah, and it's measurable.
Without eating 9 ounces of chicken or something like that. But one thing that I think might stick in my head after this is when you were talking about how much work our body has to do.
Right.
I was thinking, let's just say you got that Bentley you wanted, but you were driving at 150 miles an hour all the time. Like, you might be like, dude, the wear and tear I'm putting on this thing is not worth it. But that doesn't mean you hate the car.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's just like you're just overusing it.
Yes.
And when you overuse your body or your digestion system or whatever, then to me, that's a good visual for me. It's like, dude, like you're saying, like, I don't want to hate on THC.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to hate on it because this is a byproduct. I just need to manage it the right way. I just need to drive the speed limit.
I love that. That's a really good visual representation of managing the munchies.
That's what I'll say.
I just want to make a meme of like you in a car on your way to Taco Bell, but then you swerve away and it's like Rich is managing his munchies today.
Yes. See, I'm passing all the billboards and just giving them the finger and just going home.
Yeah.
So,
That's also when I have the munchies really bad, I try to like drink water because water will like fill me up and try to help me feel full.
That's true.
And that's where I'll get creative because sometimes I'm not hungry. I'm just craving like flavor.
Yeah.
Like I just want something exciting.
Yes.
And so I'll like add lemon to my water or something to give me that sour and tart, and then I'm not just eating these like empty carbs or something. So that's another little trick I've used. Or I'll just go get busy. Like if I'm hungry, I'm like, all right, I'll just go for a walk and I'll just like remove myself from the kitchen. But sometimes then I'm hungrier after the walk. So there's double conundrum there.
It lasts a while. It can last a while. So even if you're strong, I think one thing for me, I'm like, if I'm strong these first couple hours, I'm good. And then, but hour 3, I'm like still hanging on.
Yeah.
Like, uh-oh.
Yeah.
And that's where it happens. But we'll see. I mean, I'd like to know if like for anyone watching or listening, it's like, tell us what you've done to either combat it, and also don't be afraid to tell us your go-to meal. Like I want to hear.
Also, what's the best munchie meal?
I want to hear the creative meals, and I will say I can tell you what is not is like the nacho fries at Taco Bell or whatever. Those never really work out. And, like I could usually make something better at home, but I'd love to hear your crazy meals and maybe something Devin and I could have in addition to her dried mango fruit.
Yeah, so boring. I know. I feel like what happens with the Taco Bell when you do is like you get it and you're like, oh, I'm so excited, and then that second bite you're like,
it's Is it anticlimactic or anticlimatic?
Anticlimatic.
Anticlimactic.
I don't know.
Yeah,
y'all tell us.
It's anticlimactic for sure. It's just like really.
Yeah.
Like especially when I open it, I'm like, this doesn't even look like. This just looks like.
It's not food.
This looks like someone's on minimum wage job is like, fuck this.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah. So munchies. That's what's happening. That's the science in our bodies. I want to drill down into like the why why you can never kind of fill the cup.
Yeah,
of hunger.
I think if you guys know any, or if you see a guest or know a nutritionist or a doctor who could explain this further, I think that'd be awesome for the episode for all of us, for sure.
And then I feel like I also in my head am seeing like a healthy munchie cookbook.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
Stay tuned.
Take on another project.
Yeah, I can do it. Yeah. So as I mentioned, one of the things I use to kind of navigate munchies is dosage and how much of the THC in particular, that compound, I take at a time. In our next episode, we're going to talk about that. So thank you for coming on today.
Of course.
And I can't wait to keep doing more of these.
Yes, send us your stuff.